Good morning. Today is Monday, April 21st, and this is Wake Up with KERA News. I'm Andrew Garcia. The rain has passed for now. We've got sunny skies to start the week. Temperatures will peak in the lower 80s today. North Texas health departments are feeling the impact of federal funding cuts. We'll hear more about that right after the news. It's been 1 year since Anthony Johnson Jr. died in Tarrant County Jail custody. As KERA's Miranda Suarez reports, it's unclear when the criminal cases and lawsuits that spun out of his killing might be over.
Johnson died after an altercation with Tarrant County jailers. Video of the incident shows a jailer identified as Rafael Moreno kneeling on Johnson for about 90 seconds, while Johnson tells them he can't breathe. Moreno and a supervisor, Joel Garcia, were indicted for murder. Attorneys for both defendants say there is no timeline for when their cases might go to trial. Johnson's family also sued Tarrant County and more than a dozen jailers. In February, a federal judge dismissed the lawsuit against Tarrant County itself and some of the other defendants. According to court filings, the family plans to appeal. For KERA News, I'm Miranda Suarez in Fort Worth.
A group called Protect White Americans held a protest in Frisco on Saturday over the killing of Austin Metcalf. KERA's Caroline Love says there were more police officers and members of the media than supporters.
Philip Anderson helped lead the rally in the parking lot of the Frisco Stadium where 17-year-old Carmelo Anthony fatally stabbed Metcalf at a track meet. Anthony is charged with first-degree murder and is out on bond. Anderson said at the protest people were afraid to speak out against anti-white violence. Anderson is black.
All these people that agree with us, but they're in their cars right now because they're afraid to be seen on camera, because they're afraid that they'll lose their jobs.
Anderson faced charges related to the January 6 attacks on the U.S. Capitol that were later dismissed. For KERA News, I'm Caroline Love in Frisco.
North Texas health departments are feeling the impact of federal funding cuts. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention last month pulled back billions of dollars in grants it sent out in response to COVID-19. That funding helped local governments monitor and address other diseases and community issues, such as the measles outbreak that started in West Texas. KERA health reporter Kaylee Broussard spoke with me about how North Texas officials are dealing with the cuts. So Kaylee, these grants were awarded in response to the pandemic. Why were they still being used?
Yeah, so the funding in question was in response to the coronavirus pandemic. Think of programs like the CARES Act and the American Rescue Plan Act. But the grants covered so much more. The pandemic exposed gaps in public health systems. So nonprofits and governments used these grants for things like improved testing, hosting vaccination clinics, addressing barriers to healthcare in underserved communities, even mental health. But the U.S. Health and Human Services Department under the Trump administration has called that spending a waste. Representatives for the agency said HHS will no longer use taxpayer money to respond to a quote-unquote non-existent pandemic that Americans moved on from years ago. Groups were counting on these grants through at least this summer and some through 2027, but the CDC told grant recipients it would cancel $11.4 billion in unspent funding late last month.
What do we know about the cuts' impact? Any layoffs or budget cuts?
So at the state level, a Department of State Health Services spokesperson told me Texas and its grant recipients could lose up to $550 million. But a senior advisor to the state agency said earlier this month that amount could be more than $700 million. Locally, the Tarrant County Health Department furloughed 63 employees and more might be coming. Officials estimate the county as a whole will be about $15 million short of what it expected from federal grants. Dallas County Health and Human Services lost 2 grants totaling $70 million and had to lay off 21 workers. County Health Director Dr. Philip Wong called the cuts random and harmful.
I don't know that everyone understands exactly what's happening. And, the destruction of these supports and resources and expertise that we've had, it's really going to set us back decades.
Dallas and Tarrant County officials say more positions and programs could be at risk of getting cut.
I can't help but wonder about the timing of these cuts as Texas is currently facing a measles outbreak.
So the closest cases right now are in Lamar County along the Oklahoma border, which has 11 cases. Erath County in central Texas has 1 case. Rockwall County earlier this week reported a measles case possibly connected to the outbreak. If confirmed, that will mark the first case of its kind in North Texas. There was a measles exposure in Grapevine recently as well, and measles is very contagious, so public health officials have been preparing for this scenario. Wong was working with school districts with lower vaccination rates to set up pop-up clinics. Dallas County had clinics planned through the end of the year but had to cancel 50 of them. Wong says the county was also working on its capacity to test for measles but had to pull that back too. Denton, Collin, and Tarrant counties all had epidemiology positions affected by these cuts. Tarrant County officials warned the county overall could see 70 federal grant programs cut and 350 staff positions affected.
So what's next for these counties?
Well, they're trying to find ways to fund programs and reshuffle staff who were laid off or furloughed. 6 Denton County employees were affected by the cuts, but commissioners were able to extend 4 employees' contracts for at least a couple more months. Dallas and Tarrant counties are trying to do the same. Meanwhile, a Trump-appointed district judge in Rhode Island temporarily blocked the Trump administration from canceling the grants. So, as is the case with many of these federal decisions, we'll have to wait and see whether lawsuits against the efforts to slash federal funding prevail.
That was my conversation with KERA's Kaylee Broussard. The Mavs are officially out for the season. They lost Friday's play-in game to the Grizzlies. And the Stars lost their first playoff game this weekend 5-1 against the Avalanche. And the Dallas Trinity FC tied against Fort Lauderdale FC in yesterday's game. Head to the Dallas Children's Theater to check out their production of James and the Giant Peach. Find more information and some other fun things to do at kera.org/calendar. Thanks so much for listening to Wake Up with KERA News. I'm your host, Andrew Garcia. This show is produced and edited by Shardae White and Bekah Morr. For more news in your inbox, visit kera.org/wakeup. That's where you can subscribe to the Wake Up with KERA News newsletter and get some good morning vibes from our colleague Catherine Hobbs. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at KERATX. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.